We're not on live on YouTube right now, and if we are, somebody tweet me.
Are we live but not live on our channel? We've gone. Have we taken over YouTube?
I mean, I know people watch like the live streams, like the strangest things, but I never thought us preparing for a podcast would be one of them. To be fair, I never thought that people watch us doing a podcast, but alas, here we are. John Ellis Bush
Right,
Books.
right, okay.
Guest 5 says we are live.
We have life.
Are we
On
live?
what link?
Who the fuck knows?
Guest 5, thank you, sir.
Right, I've got a copy of it.
We're live.
How long have we been live for?
We are live.
Yeah. Right, that must be your one then, is it? That must be your link.
That's one. It's yours. It's the Three Legs Four Wheels live stream.
Is it? Yeah, because that's still not working.
Where are we finding this link? Well, this has gone just.
I don't know why I'm
swimmingly.
replying to Guest 5. I could just say, thank you, sir. Technology is very much failing us out loud, if you can see us. Basically, we weren't able to do the Patreon podcast live streaming because of a bug between the hardware that we use and the software that our hardware uses and YouTube.
Oh, yeah, I found it.
Yeah, well, I'll send you.
It's all right. I've got it. I've copied it.
You got it? Stick it in the. Oh no, it's alright. I'll do it.
I put it in the. I put it in the chat.
Oh, you put it in the other chat.
I put it in the YouTube chat.
Great. Fuck technology.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fuck it right in the head.
You might need to pull your microphone closer so that people can hear you, Lee.
I know. That was for me.
So that was a bit of a workaround. Hi to everyone who's watching on
Oh
YouTube.
my god.
Howdy, thanks for tuning in and such.
Well, we kind of got there in the end. The new link
We think.
works.
So I wonder why that'll live stream now for like normally.
Mevo is just having problems.
Just having a spaz.
Yeah, Mevo is having one of them nights.
The software that talks to the hardware is also not talking to YouTube at the moment.
Like
is that correct?
70-year-old penis.
Right.
I'm
Right.
glad we haven't started. I'm glad we haven't started. Do you want to set the laptop up because I can say the shuttle is like well in.
Thanks for joining us on the live stream. Sorry about all the issues, but we're good to go.
Are we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Should we do the pod?
I think.
And thanks for joining us.
Let's get podding.
Mm.
Hi and welcome to this week's Three Legs Four Wheels F1 podcast. It's Paul here with
Sean.
Chris.
Lee.
technology, eh?
No, thank
Who'd
you.
have it? It's almost like the steering wheel of this podcast was going in and out when nobody expected it.
dear,
Ooh,
Paul,
that's
yeah.
ropey, innit?
Oh, tell me about it. Actually,
What a start.
before we kick off tonight, just want to say good luck to Jana, who isn't joining us on the live stream tonight because she's got a job interview on the other side of Michigan.
Good luck, Janet.
Good luck in your job
Yes.
interview.
So, right, testing then. What the hell have Mercedes come up with?
They've come up with something that's called DAS, which, well, who was it who tweeted us and said, Das ist
Das
gut?
ist good. Yep.
Which I thought was brilliant.
Whoever tweeted that has obviously listened to the Hot Lap because that was the title of Hot Lap.
Was it?
Yep.
No, I think that happened before.
I have
Hot
seen
lap.
a lot of Das ist gut on Twitter. I
Yeah,
think it's
but that
the,
was funny.
the obvious joke.
Yeah. Yeah, dual axis steering,
Mm.
which, not to get too technologically boring, let's just say, get into it, means that the steering wheel does more than just steer the car by pushing and pulling it. Obviously, they can change which way the wheels are pointing as well. It's clever,
General idea of a steering wheel, isn't it? To change which way the wheels are pointing.
not by changing the what's
No, I
called the toe, but the it's a clever device.
Yeah.
One that I've seen explained very easily in a graphic, but I mean, we're not here to be super technical.
No.
I think
Well.
it's genius, and I wish innovation like this in Formula One happened more often. To be perfectly honest with you,
I agree with you, but if the team that comes up with the innovation, where all the teams are saying, yeah, it's going to take us half a season, like, or Ferrari's going to take half a season to implement it, it does. it just kind of destroys Formula One. That's what these new rules next year are for, isn't it? Is to try and
Tighten it up.
tighten up these loopholes.
Well, I've already tightened it up for DS because it looks like Mercedes were in discussions with the FIA about it for quite a while. And this now explains why in the 2021 regulations there is a paragraph stating that steering wheels can only work on a horizontal axis.
But this is not in reaction to this week's testing.
No, because it turns out they've been in discussions about it for the last 6 to 12 months.
Well,
The-
they
the-
all,
those-
always
Bottas has
will
said
be, won't
that
they?
he knew it was on, like, he'd seen a drawing of it a year ago. So this has
And-
been, like, in the pipeline forever.
It's
And
same
that
as double
2021
diffuser, isn't it?
paragraph was
Mhm.
written in October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the same as the double diffuser. The FIA knew all about Braun's double diffuser before they went to testing.
Yeah.
So if you can come up with it, it's the standard F1 thing though, isn't it? If it's not in the rules, then you can do it until it's not in the rule,
Mhm.
until it's specifically not in the rules.
Yeah, yeah.
Do
Yeah.
what I wonder is if it ends up being something that's like super cool and has like other applications as well. I can see like Ross Brawn's Formula One being a little bit like Formula E, where with like shorter,
Crashing.
yeah, but with shorter agreements, so you can have like a Gen 1 and Gen 2. So like the Ross Brawn Formula 1.2, maybe that'll be implemented within the formula.
Possibly, yeah. But if they're going to tighten it up that much for 2021,
Yeah.
which looks like they are doing. Yeah, the only team that sort of I've seen that aren't particularly happy about it, well, conflicting sides of the same team, is Red Bull. Christian Horner says it's quite clever, and Helmut Marko not impressed.
That's
Yeah.
always the way, though, isn't it? Anytime anyone comes up with something that's going to give them a massive advantage, their rivals hate it because they didn't think of it first.
Yeah.
Well,
Does,
no,
does
everybody-
Helmut Marko not like it because technically it works in 3D and he's not very good at
No, to be fair to all the other team bosses or like technical staff, when they've been asked about it, they've been like, "Yeah, it's within the rules."
There doesn't
'Cause
seem
they
to be a
will have
lot of
double-checked.
complaining. You know,
No, most of the complaining is coming from the Formula One fans, but I think as an innovation, and like I think Daniel Ricciardo said it best. Look at Mercedes; they've dominated hybrid, turbo hybrid era for
hybrid era, you
yeah,
could-
It's a
hybrid
hybrid
era.
of turbo and
I-
It
hybrid.
is, yeah.
I think you'll
that
find
becoming Yorkshire.
and they're still they're still pushing to try and make the to keep themselves at the front. They've never rested at all whatsoever, and so that's it's admirable, put it that way. But the thing that I like about it the most is that it's such an unknown quantity. You don't know what the advantage is going to be.
I mean, in the sort of modern sterile era of Formula One with identikit cars and everyone's using the same technology, and occasionally Williams, it's good to see an innovation like that come out. It's the
Yeah.
closest we'll get to the Brabham fan car or the
Six-wheeler.
six-wheel Tyrrell.
Yeah.
There's nothing to say we can't do it.
Mm.
Let's do it, and if it gives us an advantage, great. And then let the rule makers worry about it.
Mm.
And the last thing that was anywhere close to this innovative, I would probably say, was the McLaren F duct.
Yeah, I don't think you should sell short what Mercedes have done for hybrid engines as an innovation.
Oh no, I mean they've completely dominated since the hybrids came in with the engine. They've got the power unit that can over the course of a whole season destroy the opposition.
Well, that's been the problem, I think, with this era of Formula One is the innovation hasn't happened because it's all been about the engine. That's where the money's had to be spent
Yeah.
to try and
power
close
unit
the gap to
part.
Mercedes. It seems odd, doesn't it, that all of a sudden when Honda bridged the gap to Mercedes, Ferrari bridged the gap until they were shouted at to Mercedes, and then all of a sudden Mercedes innovates the car rather than the engine all of a sudden.
Although having said that, James Allison's little video that he's done where he goes through what they've improved on the car, he's expecting an awful lot more engine power as
Yeah.
well. Which, let's be honest, given what we've seen from the first test, kind of terrifying.
It is kind of terrifying. I still believe that the Red Bull and especially Max Verstappen, because I always think there's certain people, Vettel's a good one for it, Max Verstappen's a good one for it, where regardless of any of the PR bullshit that's going around, you can see in their eyes when they're happy or they're not.
Yeah.
And for Mercedes to appear to be so far ahead, Max Verstappen still looks incredibly happy.
Yeah.
And I don't think Max Verstappen would be incredibly happy if he thought he had a nailed on second or third place car.
You can't necessarily tell everything from the first test.
I mean, what the quote that we got from the insider at Red Bull last week said it all. First test is just going to be effectively a shakedown. Let's just make sure that everything works.
Yeah.
Then we'll bolt all the proper parts on for the second week.
Yeah.
And what you'll see on the Friday is going to be close to the Australia spec of the car.
Yeah.
They did seem to be on it quicker though this year. You know,
I-
with losing days of testing and stuff like that. I can't remember a year where it feels like you've took as much away from the first test as you usually think you do from the second.
Yeah, I think with having the 2 days less, they've got to really hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Or in the case of Williams, they had to hit the ground this year.
Yeah.
And
Tremendous,
he was first
tremendous
out.
job by Williams. What appears to be a tremendous job.
First out on day one, George Russell.
And it might be an unpopular opinion, but now I've seen all the cars on the track. Best looking car this year.
No, I hate it.
On the track, it looks fucking great.
I don't like the new Williams. I
Go-
didn't like last year's livery either. To be
I
fair.
thought the AlphaTauri was going to be the my favourite looking car. You know, when I saw the picture of the launch, but actually on the track, looks messy, looks shite.
Okay.
I've got to admit, I didn't see too closely a lot of the running at full speed 'cause I was watching it on my iPad at work while I was working.
working.
I was doing work. My iPad was on a little stand under my monitors as I tweeted the photo out last week, and many people replied with similar pictures of what they were doing. But no, I think the Williams on the track looks better than last year's. And even though they turned up late to practice, you still had a lot of time to see it on track last year because it was going that slowly. But times-wise, it actually looks like they bridged quite a lot of the gap. I
They're
mean,
not last.
Latifi said that not all the problems have been fixed so far
Yeah.
with last year's car, because they said at the time when they launched, it's an evolution.
Yeah.
Because they are pitching everything as much as they can in for 2021, which I think a lot of the teams are. Although Mercedes are probably doing absolutely nothing because they designed their 2021 car on the 1st of November after the regulations got published. And it's already showing 5 seconds a lap faster. But no, to me the Williams looks like, and this is a compliment compared to where they've been for the last 2 years, one of the other cars.
Yeah. To not be last is a great job. You know, you can't ask a lot more from Williams than that. They were never going to be right at the top end of the pack, but to just not be, well, to be at the first test for a start, but to get to the first test, be the first car out on track on day one, and as soon as the light went green, George Russell was waiting there, ready to go.
Yeah.
Off he went. But to be above Haas in terms of laps completed and lap time.
I said it all last year, didn't I? Like Haas, you could see were on the way down, whereas Williams, although in a bad position, at least looked positive.
They were at least making progress
Yeah,
all
yeah.
year, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean,
They were
Haas-
always catching.
They didn't know what was wrong.
Yeah, Haas regressed because they couldn't find the problem. Because just by the way that they run the team, they've got that many people to check with as to whether the problem was with their company or with another company, or was it Dallara, was it Ferrari?
I've got a bold Haas prediction.
Oh,
This is the last you'll see Haas in the grid.
exciting.
No, what you think of the fuck-ups that they've had so far, the Rich Energy debacle, the fact that Gene Haas is now floating an entire Formula One team again with just his sponsorship on the side of it. You're going to have two drivers that are constantly trying to crash into each other or other people.
I think they're trying not to. It's just they're not very good.
Well, you could have fooled me at testing.
Two driver errors are the reason that they didn't complete as many laps as
Yeah.
as anyone else.
Oh, I think, have they
let's
not
be honest.
blamed a tyre for Magnussen's
It
thing?
didn't seem like.
It's that I think he got the puncture after he hit the curb.
Yeah, I do. Because he was so much over that curb. But yeah, I can't see Gene Haas floating a Formula One team continually, because he's also he's been successful in other things he's done, hasn't he? And this
Everything else he's done pretty much.
Yeah.
the only time Haas has been anywhere near successful is when they had the really close tie-in with Ferrari. That's obviously not going to happen anymore because Ferrari have Alfa Romeo.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah, the relationship that was sort of Haas were the baby Ferrari he turned up one year looking like.
Well,
a
Ferrari own Alfa Romeo, yeah,
Yeah, well, they don't.
but they kind of do.
Yeah, they
They,
kind.
they are
yeah.
two brands within the same family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are two separate brands. I'm sure they will tell you.
I'm still not too sure what the financial situation between Ferrari and the Alfa Romeo team is because it's still being managed by Sauber.
Peter Sauber turned around and said, as far as the team goes, it is Sauber with an Alfa Romeo badge on it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's officially speaking, the link between Ferrari and Alfa Romeo is that is that Alfa Romeo under the Fiat Chrysler Automobile Group, and Ferrari, technically speaking, aren't, but they are.
But they
Yeah.
are. But I don't think either way. I don't think you're going to get the Haas Ferrari thing anymore. And if they don't have that help, and they have Roman Grosjean, and they have Kevin Magnussen, they have the worst driver pairing on the grid. I would struggle to see. It'd be interesting to put Stroll in a car, in one of those cars with each of them, to see where Stroll measured on those. Because
that's an odd little mini championship.
well, they're
you've
the
got going
three
there.
worst drivers on the grid. They're absolutely worst drivers. Over one lap, I still think Grosjean will probably have both of the other two. But it's multiple laps is where he gets into issues.
Having to focus for more than
I
2
th-
minutes.
I think that might be the most diplomatic way I've ever said anything.
There is a wonderful YouTube video that shows off what Lance Stroll's problem is, and it's that he doesn't look in his mirrors ever.
But yeah, I don't even understand what they're doing with both those drivers in the car this year. It's so weird. It's like they're giving up.
It is a surprise, isn't it, that they keep re-signing Grosjean and Magnussen every year. We're
Particularly
surprised.
that this year Hulkenberg was available.
Yeah, and yet, no.
Yeah,
Well,
but the year before you kind of saw like, okay, there's maybe not that.
well, the year
much
before we
option.
thought maybe Ocon for a year.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think he was still at that point. He was still banking on a Mercedes seat
Yeah.
at some point. So I kind of got why they stuck with them for last year. For this year, less so.
Apparently, it's all been down to the feedback that they gave on how bad the car was last year.
Well,
Right.
I think, like I've said it before, didn't I, that Grosjean saved his career
By reversing
by reversing the car and being quicker.
Yeah. He said, this car isn't working, let's revert back to the old spec. And the engineers went, no, this car is better. And they went, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Put me back in this car. So they did, and he was, like you say, he was better. I have to agree with you on that.
Well,
one.
like regardless of like these stupid occasions he gets himself into bother, he's a massively experienced Formula One driver now, isn't he?
Yeah, 10 years, is it? He's been in
Yeah.
the sport. So.
How?
There's still some crazy stat I vaguely remember from like Bahrain last year that he has more podiums in Bahrain than the entire history of the Red Bull team.
Whoa.
Wow. You have to be a stat addict to find that out, don't you?
I think I looked that up while writing a preview. Unless I can't actually remember what Red Bull did in Bahrain last year. I don't think they were on the podium. I think it was Mercedes and a Ferrari.
Well, that's the thing, wasn't it?
Can't
But back in Lotus days, when it was like Grosjean and Kimi, Grosjean was making rookie mistakes, but he still looked every bit like a potential world
He was
champion.
fast.
It was
If a
fast.
little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah.
like you
Then
say, a bit haphazard, but
then he went through that going slow but finishing phase, and now he's in sort of this limbo land where he's not as fast as he used to be, but now he's still making mistakes. And
basically, what he needed to do is put them both together, which he's done, but with the wrong half of each.
Yeah,
so he's
if-
now slow and mistaken.
it'd be
But the-
interested. I know he had driver coaching. Be interested to know if he's ever gone down the route of sports psychologist.
I think he must have done.
I think it's
I
pretty,
think
it's pretty
I think
standard now,
every
isn't it?
driver's got
Yeah.
their own sports psychologist.
I wonder if he'd gone down the route of a different sports psychologist.
The thing is, though, with those two drivers being the way they are and both having incidents over the short three-day test, we don't know where that Haas car genuinely is.
In the garage.
I think it's rough. When you saw the onboard with those guys, it looked like a rough car to drive.
Yeah. I mean, some car has to be like has to
Nah.
be that. Is it going to be those? You know,
I think that's the
Grosjean,
interesting thing
Magnussen.
now, isn't it? Especially with all the manufacturers. So that are in Formula One now. I know we haven't got a lot of manufacturers, but we've got a few. And the fact that a couple of the B tier teams are linked to big boy teams as well. Three of them now. Then your independents are the likes of Red Bull, McLaren. That are there. That are like
well, Red Bull control Alpha Tauri as well.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like they're sort of the midfield is connected to a big boy team, but like it's Red Bull's still an independent team.
Okay.
Haas are kind of the outlier there. They're the only independent team without a rich history in Formula One.
Yes.
You know, so it's at that point.
Now taking it that Racing Point are, as everyone's been calling them, the pink Mercedes.
Yes.
Mercedes.
So yeah, whoever's last, if it's, I mean, it makes sense it's Haas. When you actually look at it, look at the teams and look at what everyone else has achieved, it makes sense that Haas is last.
Yeah.
That's all I've got to say about that.
Williams ninth though, fairly solid outing for Nicholas Latifi.
Mm-hmm.
George Russell appears to have stepped it up again a
Yeah.
little bit more. Difficult to know because of where the Williams was last year, but he appears to looking like a
Right.
team leader rather
Yeah.
than, you know,
But
a
I'm
second season
I'm
Formula
amazed
One
how
with
confident
a rookie next to him.
he is in interviews.
Grown up a bit
Yeah.
for his second year.
Well, even like just
He was always pretty mature when he was in F2.
yeah. Well, I mean, when we met him, he's a fucking
Clang.
no, but he was an impressive person. You know, he
Yeah.
was an-
Oh yeah.
he was an impressive man to meet. And yet, like you see, I like Lando Norris. He comes across great, but when you stick him, when he's in interviews, he still comes across as a child. Do you know what I mean? There's a difference there. George Russell like comes across as being a man. It's an odd comparison to make with the two of them. Even with Albon as well, Albon still comes across as a young Formula One driver.
You know, he's a couple of years older than Norris.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
I think
found-
Albon still looks completely phased about where he is because practically this time last year, he wasn't going to be a driver.
But yeah, this time last year he had just driven an F1 car for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now he's starting his first full season, we think,
Yeah. I think
in one of
I-
the top
It's
teams.
Red Bull, and anything
Yeah.
could happen.
I think he showed signs last year that if given the space and if he can get like momentum behind him, so he doesn't get that Red Bull pressure on top of him, I think he can hassle Max Verstappen.
I mean, he had a few races last
Yeah.
year where he was ahead of him. I think there was one where Verstappen ended up in some gravel through no fault of his own.
He
But
only
there
had
were a
half a
few.
Yeah.
season. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's what I mean. So like going into this season, I think he's got every chance of like bothering Max Verstappen.
Possibly. Just trying to think of who was roughly down and around down by Williams were.
Before I forget about it, was someone that was down by Williams, which I noticed, was Kubica. Now, did anyone notice how quick Kubica was in the Alfa Romeo and the fact he was ahead of Giovinazzi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I was looking at the times there and like the difference between the two drivers at that point. I was thinking like, what if
He
Kubica?
was right.
no, but what if Kubica did a much better job in a bad car than we thought he did, and George Russell is fucking amazing?
Are we not already of the opinion that George Russell is pretty?
Yeah, but
But I think he's just leveled him up again.
Yeah. like if
Yeah,
is
what if Kubica is actually all right?
yeah,
And,
and
George
like
Russell is worth 10,000 Vettels.
yeah, and like no, but George Russell, like I'm thinking George Russell, is he that good where we don't see it because he was in a Williams at the back of the field, but he's got like Alonso in a Minardi potential.
Well, Mercedes have essentially binned off Verline and Ocon and put all their eggs in the Russell basket. So
Yeah.
they must see something they like.
Mm-hmm. Either
Yes.
that or it's Toto Wolff's master plan to get Stoffel Van Dorn back into Formula One.
All that.
Yeah, you joke, but we did mention
Yeah, I was going to say that's not the first time we've talked about that.
He is the reserve driver for
Yeah.
Mercedes.
But
this
yeah,
year.
Kubica seemed to do pretty well Wednesday morning. He's driving again this Wednesday.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah,
He
is
has
it?
the big checkbook.
He's in for the morning session, and
Do you think you could nick a drive off one of them?
Nick could drive off Giovinazzi.
Do you think so?
No.
If Giovinazzi's rubbish again this year.
Ferrari must have some say on Giovinazzi's presence.
Yeah,
though.
maybe.
but there's got to be some kind of performance clause.
But
Maybe,
didn't we
maybe.
say this with Alfa Romeo though, that Ferrari have the call dibs on one seat?
Mhm.
Yeah,
And it's
And it's
Giovinazzi's.
the Giovinazzi seat.
But
but you've been convinced it's been Kimi's ever since he signed.
yeah.
Ferrari may own Giovinazzi, but they actually own Kimi's seat.
Is
Oh,
there
yeah.
not some theory though that for like a couple of weeks they owned Kubica before he like had the crash?
He
had-
was signed.
he was
so-
signed,
So
yeah.
they technically might sort of
Pre-contract.
hello piece of paper, do a car.
Yeah, I had a
Yeah.
pre-contract agreement with him.
Hmm.
Let that
Their
be a
lawyers
lesson to
might
your
wanna-
kids. If you're out there and you become a Formula One driver, stop doing stupid shit. Especially if you've got a Ferrari contract, stop doing stupid shit like rally driving and skiing.
Well,
Rally driving and skiing wrecks Ferrari careers
don't know. Kimmy
or
seemed to-
drivers.
Kimmy did some rallying.
Kimmy's
came back.
different.
Kimi's done rallying. Kimmy does what is it? Snowmobile
All
racing.
kinds of icy shit.
Kimmy,
like-
Yeah.
Kimmy drives for Kimmy.
Yeah,
That's he drives for Team Kimmy, and that just happens to be whichever team he's in.
Yeah, maybe. Yes.
I mean, maybe if you're a professional sports person being paid absolutely millions to do one sport, don't do stupid things. What was it? The San Francisco pitcher with the amazing name Madison Bumgarner. I'm just waiting for Lee's response.
Don't know why.
Yeah,
they call him Mad for short.
Mad Bum. Signed a contract, went out celebrating on his quad bike, and fractured a vertebra.
Split
Oops.
bomb.
And then he's actually admitted this week after he's moved to a different team that he takes part in rodeos under a false name as well.
Oh, raw bum.
There was an NFL player a couple of years ago who broke his arm while driving in the middle of the night, and he had to take away pizza, and the pizza slid off the chair, so he kind of like reached
Oh,
down to
dear.
get the pizza while still driving and went into a tree.
The police showed photos of the car and the
The
pizza.
pizza did not survive.
But yeah,
yeah,
let that be a lesson to you.
Yeah. So Alfa Romeo then, we probably shouldn't talk about them because they were really high up the order in terms of lap time and laps completed.
But it was a one lap, wasn't it? That's why they were high up the order. Kimmy
Glory
put
runs.
like one lap where he basically had enough fuel to get him to the finish line.
Well, he did one of those low fuel runs where they basically try and run the car to the point where they're like, well, at what point does it actually register empty?
Yeah. I was going to say it was either that or they might be the only team which has done like a genuine quali simulation.
Yeah, so they ran Kimmy's car until he ran out of fuel.
Mhm.
And I think
Was that day 2 and they red flagged at the end of day 2?
yeah,
Yes.
when he broke down.
Yeah, car switched off because he
Yeah.
had no fuel.
Yeah.
But interestingly, he was on a great time, but he was only on the C4 tyres when he did that. It was the second softest compound,
Yeah,
so there might even be more in that car for qualifying pace.
yeah.
Yeah, no, haven't it? We had this last year, didn't we?
It's all track based as
Yeah.
well.
Well,
isn't it? The
you get-
C5
again,
might
again,
not
again,
work in Barcelona.
yeah, and it's cool, a lot cooler in Barcelona this time
Yeah.
of the year. It's only like track temperature's only like what 8 degrees.
Yeah, we were there a couple of weeks ago. It was very cool.
It was. Speak for yourself. I am still covered in fucking bites.
Yeah. I think Kimmy.
Cool as in
Oh.
attitude, not cool as in temperature. I have
should
not
learn
been
to
I've not been anywhere near your knees. It was something else.
So you should learn to control yourself more.
I think if you take Kimmy out of that those fastest times, you've got a pretty good idea of where the teams lie.
Yeah.
I think he's the outlier in there.
But
which
the amount of
is in the
laps
wrong
they
place.
completed as well. I mean, they were right up there. I think they were only like 30 laps shy of Mercedes.
Yeah.
494 laps was it?
Mm.
Mercedes completed.
It's always been what Mercedes about, though, isn't it? They've always been out there pounding laps in on the car.
But never, in recent times, been right at the top of the testing.
No,
times.
but I think that shows.
Do you think this is Braun 09, which is like, shh, quick, put more fuel in the car?
For
Don't let them know
Mercedes.
we're that quick.
3/4 of a second
hell.
faster than anyone else, and still adding sandbags.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like I wonder whether Mercedes is just like that far ahead that they can't not be at the top.
Well, Ross Brawn said, didn't he, about the year of Brawn, when they realised that Jensen went out for a run and was like you say, Paul, 3/4 of a second
Mhm.
quicker than everyone else. It was just like, Jensen, you might want to pull into the pits. Pulled him into the pits, and then we just said, we just need to add some ballast.
Yeah.
Because we think we're actually a lot faster than everyone else.
I don't.
Well, wasn't Jensen complaining that the car wasn't set up properly and he was still getting a bit of understeering corners and it was a little bit too draggy on the straights,
Yeah.
and there was a lot more that he could get out of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And yeah, I saw that interview. And he
Crazy
said that,
times.
that Shovlin was pissing himself laughing.
Mhm.
I think it was Shufflin that lent in, wasn't it, and quietly said to him, "We're 8/10 faster than anyone else."
Yeah. Does anyone think though? Like sandbagging doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. I don't think they've got enough time to sandbag.
Not now with those 2 days missing.
Yeah.
Well, if sandbagging isn't a thing, let's talk about what the fuck Ferrari are doing.
Oh, they're
Ferrari
back, they're
fucked it.
backstanding then.
No, they fucked it. Ferrari have fucked it.
What you were saying before, Lee, about you can read drivers in their faces and
Yeah.
Verstappen still looks happy. Vettel does not.
He's
I
no,
don't
he
He
think
does
doesn't.
not want to be there.
And like,
Leclerc's media answer was borderline.
Robotic.
Yeah.
well, he's a firms man, isn't he? He is a proper firms man when it comes to Ferrari. He goes out and he reads the script as he's been told to
Yeah.
read it.
And
But there's too much for Vettel's too experienced in Formula One for that, and I think he's too much on the borderline of not enjoying being in Formula One.
the words that came out of Charles Leclerc's mouth were not Charles Leclerc; they were the engineer.
Yeah,
Because I think he said something. He said something along the lines of,
we're pushing really hard.
"No, no, 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 that would be Pastor Maldonado." And he said something along the lines of, "This car is much more much easier to set up for different circuits this year than it was last year."
How do you know, Charles? You've done
driven it
one.
once.
Exactly. It seems to take to different setups easier than than the last car. Like, fuck off! You had the fastest car in a straight line last year.
Yeah.
The fastest car in a straight
Wait,
line,
until they cheated and they were caught cheating.
and they've overhauled the whole thing.
Yeah.
Why?
I think this is
Is
hilarious.
it because they were caught cheating?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, they've had to
Could
do a
they-
different
could-
concept.
And
Be-
the FIA went,
yeah.
You can't do that, but we won't say anything if you stop doing it now.
Yeah, because the issue is, we saw it last year. Them being where they are isn't new. They dropped right off the pace. What, the last 4 races last year?
Yeah, last year's car was only impressive in
Yeah.
a straight line until they had this
Yeah.
cheating situation, and then as soon as they stopped
It was
that,
to do with,
it went.
what was it to do with electronic
What was it?
circuitry or something,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah, well, we did 4 races in a row, didn't we? Where we went, well, if they don't turn up to this race, they were obviously cheating, and then they didn't turn up, and then went, well, if they don't turn up in the next race, they were obviously cheating.
And they just stopped
So-
turning up, and Red Bull became the second best car.
Yeah.
Ferrari I don't know if they're doing what Mercedes were so good at doing in recent years. You know, just doing their own program, just ignoring what everybody else does, and just doing what they want to do. The fact that they broke down and didn't complete as many laps as
It was an
the-
engine problem as well, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was an engine problem. Yeah, they didn't complete as many. I know the breakdown was part of not completing as many laps, but I don't know.
That was a fake Ted Kravitz style analysis there.
It doesn't. It doesn't look like it's. It doesn't look very good.
I don't think do you think the atmosphere in that team can be better?
Binotto's
It's Ferrari. It can always be better.
No, but I mean, even between the 2 drivers, like, no, I
Yeah,
think
it's not great, is it?
no, and we've got, like I say, I still think you've got one of the, one of the best drivers of modern era of Formula One.
And Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah, right. I'm not even going to just dignify that with an answer, but you know, like he's not become shit overnight. He's just in the wrong fucking place.
Which seems to be the wrong place if you're a good driver.
That's why Charles going to be fine there.
He'll win a championship before Vettel wins another.
I don't think Vettel will win a championship, but I don't think that. Right, I was having this discussion with someone the other day when they said, "Well, how good do you think Charles Leclerc is? If you don't, if you don't seem to be too high on him," I said, "I don't think he's a bad driver, but at one point, Rubens Barrichello looked like a world champion. You know, there was a point where he was in Jordan and stuff like that, and he first come into Formula One, and he looked like he was going to be a world champion.
Pole position.
Yeah.
Belgium 95.
Yeah, yeah. But Formula One needs like Massas and Coulthards, but it doesn't mean every good driver doesn't win a world championship, and he has David Coulthard like retiring with 18, 19 wins, something like that over the course of however many years he's in Formula
13,
One.
I think
Yeah,
Coulthard had.
but he has that written all over him
I don't know. He did have more pole positions than anyone last year. By
with a
far.
car that was cheating.
Yeah.
But it wasn't at the time because they hadn't found it out.
Oh right, okay, is that how cheating works? Is
Yeah,
it?
it's only cheating when you get caught.
Yeah. But the
Joe, how many pole positions he
I know
has
you're-
without cheating?
I
How
know
many
your
pole positions? None.
I know your relationship history.
No pole positions without a cheating car.
zero.
Yeah, zero pole positions, 0 wins for Ferrari without a cheaty car.
Well, we'll see, won't we? But I think it's looking, and again, you can't read too much from the first test, but I think it's looking ominous for Ferrari going into the second week of
I
testing.
think it's looking hilarious.
Even they're not even in the top 3, are they?
No, I don't think so. I think they're 5th.
That's optimistic.
I mean, are we really talking the really low times at Ferrari, sort of pre-Berger and Alesi?
Not quite, because they were the worst car on the grid.
I think you will find.
Was it Nicola Larini?
And Stefan Johansson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you'll find McLaren on par with or ahead of Force India or fucking Racing Point. It's like Formula One Tourette's.
Who, Ferrari?
No,
Force India.
McLaren.
McLaren.
I think
right.
you will find them with Racing Point or ahead of them by Australia.
Possibly. I mean, let's talk Racing Point then, because it is the pink Mercedes, isn't
Yeah.
it? I've seen the side-by-side comparison and many photos of different parts. The
Mhm.
side pods are a little bit different.
Rear wings different.
A little bit. Aside from that, it does kind of look the
Does,
same.
yeah.
And things like rear wing and stuff like that. No one's going to be in Australia trim aero at this point.
No.
No, not at all. But yeah,
I mean, that's one reason why they test at Barcelona, because you can have various different aero setup arrangements on the car that will get you similar lap times.
On different parts of the circuit.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good thing for Williams actually. Williams's time on their first and second sector was kind of the same as their fastest time of the last test, and they made all the time up in the third sector, which is the twisty downforcey bit.
Which they didn't have any of last year.
Yeah, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, so the Racing Point, Perez looked really good in that car.
Mm-hmm.
He was fastest for a lot of one of the days until
Mercedes thought, right, okay.
let's get rid of last year's car by putting this year's car out there. And
Oh, what, we're meant to bring the 2016 one with a halo bolted on it.
well, yeah. What do you think about the Racing Point? Is it as bad as when Haas turned up with a Ferrari that was?
No, it's better because it actually looks as good as the car that it is. It actually seems to perform as well as the car that it is, because the Haas didn't perform as well as the Ferrari.
I think the drivers didn't perform that year for Haas.
Yeah. Also, if you remember the beginning of that season, as Haas have done historically in their few years in Formula One, they started well.
Yeah.
They start well in usually every Formula One season, but it fades away.
Yeah,
quite quickly.
Gutierrez all the way up in 11th. Oh,
Well,
hang
this
on.
well, this is the problem is that
I thought somebody had hit pause on
No.
you
The
then.
problem is
No,
it's got
Everyone on YouTube's tapping the devices.
we should do that quite often. It'd be quite funny. We just all just freeze. But the problem is there's a Racing Point. If that car is very similar to the Mercedes that finished last year's championship, has it hit its development wall already?
Well, that's what I think about these things. When you've had these teams that have took the off the shelf car from someone else.
Well, them taking the car off the shelf. It's a completely new design philosophy. by
Kind
us.
of.
To
But y-
take photos of the Mercedes and copy it, which
Yeah.
is kind of what they've admitted.
Yeah, but if you're taking like the Haas model, as we've sort of called it, where you take all the bits that you
From
can't take
Dallara
from
and
another
Ferrari.
team,
Yeah.
but they're doing it from Mercedes, then you would expect that they're going to hit the same the same development wall that Haas has done. This is why I think McLaren will overtake them in the end.
Well, I don't know.
Development
'Cause I think
race.
this is why it will work slightly better for Racing Point than it did for Haas, because at least they've got their own facility and their own team, and they're not buying basically every part in to bolt onto the car.
It's not going to hurt the fact that they use Mercedes as wind tunnel and stuff like that either, is it?
No, that's true. Because I mean, Haas I can't remember. They use a one that isn't owned by an F1 team. I think they use something completely different.
I've no,
I
I have
think
no
they
idea.
use a half-size one as well.
Yeah,
Haas.
they do.
Yeah.
50% one.
Mm.
The completely. Oh no, I've remembered again. It's just nobody hit the pause button on me that time. The Mercedes gearbox as well. The gearbox that's bolted to the Mercedes engine, so the Williams will have the same thing. The suspension has to be a certain way as well because the rear suspension on Formula One cars links up to the gearbox, and the one that's bolted to the Mercedes engines means that there's only certain configurations that you can have. So that's
why the back ends have to look similar, because
well.
they've got to be the same back
The
end.
Williams
to make the gearbox
back end will
work.
probably look quite similar to either this year's or last year's Mercedes as well, because of the way that the gearbox has to work, which is why there's so many gearbox failures. If you see somebody hit a rear wheel off something, gearbox is gone because the suspension is in the gearbox.
Yeah.
So
But I get the feeling with Racing Point. Yeah, they may hit the development wall, but I think they're still quite a way off it.
I think if they are free to develop it and it's not, this is a Mercedes part, you're not allowed to play with it. If they actually have free reign, traditionally they have developed quite well. So
Yeah, I mean they've been, even going back to Force India, they progressed in the further on the season went, because they've always had good development.
Well,
Yeah.
they've
Even-
been the team
even though
that's built 2 cars a year.
yeah, they
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
start
Spec.
quite slowly, get to Spain, and all of a sudden it's, here they are.
Yeah. B-Spec Force India usually comes out at some point during
Yeah.
the season, doesn't
But-
it?
Yeah, I
But
mean, look at 2009. Nothing. Shit me, they're on pole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second, quick,
But-
get that guy to Ferrari.
Again, though, McLaren have like historically developed well
Yeah.
through the year too.
Oh, it's gonna be an arms race between them two for fourth,
But how great
or
is it that-
possibly even third if Ferrari are as.
I think one of those
in,
is going to
tur-
get
in
third.
turmoil.
Yeah.
How great is it that McLaren have had absolutely nothing to say about anything? They've
That-
been-
That's why I think if anyone's sandbagging, I don't think they're going to go and win the first race.
no, but there's been no breakdowns.
Yeah, but if
They've been
anyone's
very low-key.
sandbagging, it's them. Yeah.
There's been no breakdowns. There's been no Alonso. There's been no. So I mean, no throwing the car into the gravel in the first couple of laps. There's been no.
Alonso turns up at the track. That's a nice car. What would happen if I just dropped this screwdriver in
Yeah.
here?
There's no drama.
No.
That's because there's no Alonso.
Yeah, I think it's looking good for them as well.
I hope so.
Mhm.
The only thing that worries me is that it has been so quiet. Why is it so quiet at McLaren? Is it quiet because they're doing all right, or is it quiet because they're not that?
Again, you talk about looking at people in interviews and getting a judge
Well,
of
if you
things.
Look at what Sainz said.
Sainz and Norris seem happy with stuff.
Yeah. Sainz has said I think he must be one of the few drivers who actually pays attention to the lap times, because he said, went out there, did some laps. Car felt good, felt a lot better than last year's. But then I go and look at the lap times, and everybody else appears to have done the same leap forward. So, we don't really know where we are.
That might be it. That might be why they're not saying
Yeah.
a huge amount. It's because they actually don't quite know where they are.
Yeah.
Oh, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody sent a message on Facebook saying why have they got a Singaporean cycle shop around the Halo? They haven't. It's not Velo, it's Velo, and it's a new form of smokeless tobacco-free nicotine product from,
A better tomorrow.
yeah, which is basically British American tobacco.
I'm glad that one person that asked that will get their
Yes.
answer.
Took me a while to find it out 'cause I was confused as to why they were being sponsored by a Singaporean bike shop as well. Especially when it's not a brand that they're using their own pro cycling team that they appear to have now.
Well, yeah, they do. Yeah. Slowly.
How would you feel if you were Red Bull? Because you haven't really talked about Red Bull.
Quietly optimistic.
Wired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gnarly.
In desperate need of some sleep. Wondering why my boss is now asking me to jump through a plane in midair whilst I wear one of those squirrel
Do you
suits.
think it's the opposite, isn't it? Like Ferrari were angry with Charles Leclerc for going paragliding. For parachuting, but like Vettel, not Vettel,
Verstappen.
Verstappen or Albon come in. They're like, why haven't you been paragliding?
Did you not see what Max Verstappen was up to this week?
No.
Was something that could have gone horrifically wrong. Balance boarding whilst trying to move as many cans of Red Bull as he could from one desk to another desk.
Was he on fire?
He wasn't on fire.
He wasn't doing it properly.
He
Then.
did leap off just at the last second, though, as he was about to fall. But imagine if that had gone wrong.
Mate, that it would be so.
Sebastian Buemi, your
Yeah.
time is now.
Peter Gasly sat there going, crash, crash.
I suppose the AlphaTauri guys won't get to do any of the cool Red Bull stuff anymore, will they?
Well, it's
Still the same parent company.
I mean, AlphaTauri supported by Red Bull technology, so
Yeah.
yes.
Their lives are just like.
Don't forget, Red Bull
They're just-
technology includes making planes and
And t-shirts.
paragliders and 160 quid plain T-shirts.
Yeah, I think they'll still do it. They'll just
Oh,
do
yes.
it looking really like well dressed.
Yeah, AlphaTauri, they just do like it's like extreme light. It's not full extreme. Just
Or yeah,
Almost.
Max and Albon will be doing the extreme stuff, and Gasly and the other one, Kvyat, will be a brief moment there. will be just
Gasly
stood,
and,
stood
the
at
other one.
the sidelines, modelling the
I-
gear.
do you think it's
They're
because?
plain T-shirts for,
Yes.
what was it, 160?
160
Yes.
quid.
Yeah.
Do you think they're being quiet because like any moment that doesn't involve them being like in a car, they're stood in the garage going like, how are we here?
Yeah. Probably because I don't know where. Obviously, when James Key went to McLaren, this is James Key's like McLaren is at the MCL.
Yeah.
35.
This is why I've
But
got
the-
high hopes for what they're actually going to turn up to race with.
I hope so too. But this is your new man at Toro Rosso. Don't know who it is. AlphaTauri as they are
Yeah.
now. This
That's
is
his name,
Mr.
man.
Alpha
Jonathan Towery.
Yeah. Al Faturi. That's why they changed the name of the team, wasn't it?
It's the sincerest form of
Nothing.
imitation.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But this is his first car or her first car. I think I'll just scoot
They
that.
first car.
It is their first car. Its first. Sorry, no. So I'm interested to see how this one pans out as well, because we all know that even though there's plenty of people doing the Red Bull car, that Adrian Newey still kind of gets the final say on what goes on in the main Red Bull team. But AlphaTauri have got to not start from scratch, but you know they've got like a newer. This is like the first time with the newer engineers, newer team as well.
So the big question for AlphaTauri and Toro Rosso for like these years since the rules have been opened up is why Red Bull don't do for Alpha. So sorry for AlphaTauri for what?
other
Sorry, I got
The
confused
other
there.
Alpha.
Yeah, why they don't do for Tauri what Ferrari do for Alpha and what Mercedes have started doing for Racing Point?
I suppose it's
You
because-
really struggled with that one.
I think it's probably because initially Toro Rosso, as it was then, was the young driver team. It wasn't
Yeah.
about offering out parts and getting your car as far up the grid as you could. It was about preparing the driver. So
But surely that's got to be they could cut the reason that
AlphaTauri.
AlphaTauri.
Haas did it when they
that's
came
not
here.
where we thought we were going.
No, but the
Sorry,
reason
Sean, we both thought it was the same team.
What really did it? What really
Point
did help
to the
me?
viewers on YouTube who thought he was going to say Haas.
Whoa, what really helped me there was the fact that everyone said a different Formula One team that I wasn't thinking of.
If you think he was going to say Haas, like and subscribe.
But right, the reason they came into Formula One like they did, and they bought all the bits off Ferrari that they could do, is because it was cheaper. So it makes sense for Red Bull, within the bounds of the rules, to throw the hand-me-downs down to Toro Rosso.
Which is what happened when Toro Rosso started, because
Yeah.
their first 3 seasons they were using last year's Red Bull.
Yeah.
It was, and then that
And then
stopped.
then that got outlawed.
That's when that
Yeah.
rule came in that you have to have complete disparity.
But for like the
between
last 4
teams.
years, Toro Rosso could have had a like last year's Red Bull and been much further up the grid.
I think a lot of what was behind that was there's been all the rumours about Toro Rosso being up for sale at various points, and I think what Red Bull wanted to do was have it as its own separate team so it could just sell it all on, and the new owners, which at one point looked like it was going to be a Lacey and Berger,
It did, yeah.
until they got shit faced.
Spent all their money
And
on
had a
it.
fight.
Strangely enough, in Singapore.
Yeah. I think what they wanted for the new owners was to buy an F1 team with all the capabilities there to make the kit, not have to buy it in.
Yeah.
So you weren't buying an F1 brand, you were actually buying a full F1 factory
But
off the shelf.
But we know that that's not the way to have a sustainable Formula One team in Formula One anymore. And surely,
And I think now with the new rebranding, they are just going to run it as a separate team and keep it at arm's length. Should they get the right offer from some point in the future?
but in this modern era of Formula One, surely it would make a more attractive like proposition
had
to
a thought.
buy if they already had a technical hookup with one of the best teams on the grid.
Well, the thing is, up until 3 months ago, it looked like Aston Martin would be taking more into Red Bull, and then maybe Toro Rosso would be able to be pushed towards Honda for them making their full comeback with a works team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do have a technical tie-up with Honda.
Yeah.
They're not
Mm-hmm.
entirely on their own.
Now it's gone completely sideways with Lawrence Stroll buying, was it 50% of Aston Martin?
52.
But
is
still,
that.
this is still modern talk, though. I don't understand why you would handicap your car.
I think that Dietrich Mateschitz is still pushing to sell AlphaTauri as it is now to Honda,
Possible.
Maybe.
because we'll get to the point where more manufacturers want to come back in. WEC is not as attractive as it used to be, and they've completely screwed things over with all the new regulations there. And Aston have pulled out of that, and it
The
looks like this-
supercar thing's not looking like
No.
the
Holy
hypercar
grail.
field,
Factory
the hypercar
imagination.
rules have been changed now because you've now got to have a road going car, so that's split off all the we just want to enter this series, we don't want to build cars, we're not a factory. So the hypercar field next year is going to be Toyota,
Yeah, it's
and that's it.
they've properly like fucked it, haven't they? They've
Mhm.
made it not even just for people wanting to get into it as far as a business proposition. From a fan's point of view,
Mhm.
it's like they've just ripped out any reason you'd want to watch that.
Yeah. So this leaves the way open for Honda to buy out B team, make it a factory team. Porsche, who were going to come back into WEC, had built a F1 engine. There's the possibility for them to do
But
it.
again, I think Gerhard Berger's something to do with that, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't bank on it.
I think there's more chance of a new manufacturer coming in and buying a team than there is of Honda doing it. I think Honda, given what's happened with McLaren, they came back into Formula One wanting to be an engine supplier. If they can get like success with Red Bull, I think that's enough for Honda.
I think the chances of Honda taking over Toro Rosso, and I'm still going to call them that until Australia and possibly beyond. I think that's now off the table because they've now got the opportunity to throw more into the big boy Red Bull team.
Yeah.
Because now the Aston Martin tie-up's going.
They did go through a phase as well, Honda, of trying to get an F2 driver qualified enough to go into the Toro Rosso team, and it just didn't happen because they
No.
were all shit.
Yeah, basically. I just had a quick look on my Google Maps there because I had a quick thought given, the recent news
About maps?
about maps.
Right.
about Italy in particular. The two factories that are in
Yes.
Italy,
Mm.
Faenza and Maranello, being the AlphaTauri and Ferrari factories, are they affected by the lockdown of COVID-19 is currently called?
Interesting, yeah.
They are not.
Ah.
They are outside the provinces that are on lockdown at
Good.
the current time.
Now that is an awkward one because, of course, China's been postponed and Vietnam's looking iffy, and
And we were talking last week
Yeah.
about how Imola's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll do it.
and
and
now
then
all of a
Italy's
sudden
like,
Italy's
"Oh,
like,
no."
oh no,
Yeah.
no, you can do it, but nobody's coming.
I think we might have issues for races this year because, especially if, like, quarantining this. I'm not going to start some sort of doomsday prophecy, but
So you've got
quarantining.
about 4 other shows for that.
Yeah, quarantining doesn't seem to be working to stopping the spread. You know, I'm not, and there's so much like fear mongering stuff going around. I'm not getting into that.
Absolutely.
You've
And
got
it's
4 other
still-
shows for that.
No. There's still like it's still like a 2% death rate and stuff like that. We're still looking at death rates like the flu. But if we're starting to not send Formula One to places, because I think it's more than even the team's people. You know, like the like crews and stuff that you'd be putting in danger. Let's not forget that the Formula One paddock is followed around by some of the richest, most powerful people in the world.
Well, it's not just that; it's the amount of fans that turn up
Oh yeah,
to a
but
race.
I
as
don't
well.
think I don't think the money people behind Formula One care about people. I don't think billionaires care about people.
No, but
But I
if
think that
people aren't going to turn up to your race and not, but won't buy the tickets because the threat of death. then-
Oh yeah. No, that's fine. But the
then I think the money people care about losing money.
Oh,
I
God,
th- I-
oh God, the cash cow's got foot and mouth.
I think, but I think the money people would lose more money from television rights than they will from ticket sales.
Maybe I can see what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's
so
it's
you-
a valid argument.
You'd be better off closing the circuit and running it with to no crowd just for the TV audiences.
But then you'd be
but-
looking at people. Then China would kick off, wouldn't they? Saying, "Well, you should be here then."
Yeah.
And we.
Yeah, but you've still got to pass
But
through their airport.
hang
I
on.
think that's the issue.
But
there.
this was my point here was the fact that if it can get some sort of foothold in Europe with the open borders that you have around Europe.
Well, they
I-
stopped to train last night.
Yeah, but I don't see how if you can't stop the spread from country to country when there's fucking oceans in the way. I can't see how you're not going to have major outbreaks
In Europe.
on a landmass where there's open borders. So I think we can see a lot more races. They're talking about being cancelled before the end of the season.
Perhaps. As you said before, there's a lot of fear mongering and scaremongering going on.
Yeah.
10 people have been tested for it on the Isle of Man so
Mhm.
far.
Mhm.
0 came back confirmed.
Yeah.
I think the rate's going, if there are too many cancellations, we're going to switch the live streaming onto Twitch, and we'll just run the races ourselves on the PlayStation, and we'll discuss what happened there.
Yeah. Imagine that. Imagine all the big sporting events this year got cancelled.
I mean, Olympics is in that
Yeah.
neck of the woods.
Yeah.
The Women's Cricket World Cup. Is that this year?
There's
Is that
some-
sport?
There's a
It-
cricket going
It's
on
it's
now.
going it's going on at the minute
T20
the
is the
women's
minute,
T20
yeah.
World Cup.
Or is it T20? is it?
Euro 2020. That's
Yeah.
in
All of Europe.
all of Europe. Just
Mhm.
about every country in Europe apart from Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Wales have a match in Azerbaijan, which is questionably not Europe.
Formula One said it is.
I think the interesting thing is going to see whether we get more things cancelled is when we get into summer. If over the next few months, if warm weather comes in and just like flu season, it starts dying off, then that's fine. But given the fact that this does seem to be resilient, because it's people that have recovered from it are still be testing positive for the virus, there seems to be something odd about it. So I wouldn't be surprised if when the warm weather comes around, all of a sudden it doesn't die off like the flu virus dies off.
I got the flu when I was a teenager in the middle of summer. I was watching
Mhm.
Wimbledon.
Mm.
Yeah, the last time I had actual proper flu 2 weeks flat out, that was about end of September.
Yeah, mine was November.
Mm.
Yeah.
Not end of September last year, but the last time.
Oh, I see.
The,
yeah.
the last time I had actual serious
Yeah.
flu, the time of year was September.
Mm.
Mm.
So
No, it's strange. We a weird thing to be talking about when it comes to sport.
It is, but it's very relevant because
it's very relevant.
I think we are going to see a lot of serious sporting events either cancelled or postponed because of
Yeah.
this. The Isle of Man TT, for example, we don't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen with that. Way back 2001 when foot and mouth was a thing, and danger
Cancelled
to
it then,
agriculture.
yeah.
They cancelled it roughly like February, March,
Yeah.
It was round about this time of year.
Mhm.
and they said no, there's going to be no TT this year. I mean, and it was devastating for the local economy. Imagine what that would do.
Well,
to,
there's
like,
no
the
TT
Olympics.
races, but they said they'd go ahead with the TT festival and still invite everyone over, just not let them stand in fields and watch bikes.
Yeah.
Mm.
The Olympics are in Tokyo, are they this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
So not being funny, Japan's not that
Yeah.
far away
Mhm.
from
They've
the.
obviously they've got the cruise ship there, haven't they, in Japan?
Exactly,
That's,
yeah.
that's got all the coronavirus.
The floating petri dish, somebody called it.
Mm.
Last thing
Strange.
you want is for anybody associated with a sport to become ill, and I mean like seriously ill because they went to a place where the outbreak was known.
Yeah,
Do you know what
definitely.
I mean? I mean, you don't want to have any driver,
I think
or
you could-
any personality that is
You
instantly
could extend that to
recognisable.
anyone doing their job
Yeah.
within.
Of course,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I mean,
From a PR point of view,
from a
you
PR
wouldn't want
point,
a driver.
from a PR or any kind of from a global point of view, somebody who's instantly recognizable on the television to fans of I don't know, let's say football, for example.
Yeah.
Tries to think of a relevant
Messi.
modern day footballer. Lionel Messi won't be
Was
at the-
linked to a move to a club in China in the summer, and not in the summer, in the one that's just gone, the winter.
January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, apparently it all collapsed because his agent didn't want to send him to China.
Fair enough.
No wonder.
But all right, Messi won't be at the Euros, but he plays in Europe.
Mhm.
If he gets coronavirus, was COVID-19 as it's officially called.
I wonder how much technology Formula One uses is made in China. I suspect quite a lot. And Apple today came out saying that supplies of iPhone will be limited for the rest of the year because of this. So I wonder how much of a knock-on effect it'll have to Formula One for technology.
I don't know, but for Apple, they'll probably put the price up and people will still pay it.
Probably.
But one thing I would like to say actually, because we've got quite a few thousand listeners, it's not doomsday prophesizing, but if you're you look at Italy now where you've got those provinces which are on complete lockdown.
Yeah.
Don't let people shame you into not going and buying. I don't know, a couple of cases of water, some dried food, maybe some tinned food, and just stick it under your stairs. Worst thing happens, this all blows over in 6 months, and you've got some extra water and some tinned food.
Absolutely.
I
Tin
don't-
food lasts
It's not a
practically
bad. It's
forever.
not a bad idea.
You're listening to the Prepping Podcast.
Yeah.
This is a preview of what it'd be like if half this season gets cancelled. Shall we shut it?
Yeah.
Before we do, have we talked about Renault?
Oh God, no, we didn't.
Not really.
Ocon did really well, did a fast lap. There we
It's
are, done.
black.
Yeah.
For now, have they done the old testing livery again?
I think
so.
and it looks good. Keep it.
Yeah.
I think it looks. It's quite funny. Somebody posted a meme about. It was the Renault from when they became Renault again. Was that 2015, 2016?
Around about then, yeah.
How yellow it was, and a banana.
There was
And then it was
wasn't there with
yellow
the
with-
race suits when they had the race suits open.
They
They,
were like
looked like a
bananas,
peeled
yeah.
banana.
And, then,
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
then, and then it was yellow with a bit of black on it, slightly overripe banana. And then last year's Renault, quite a ripe banana, and then this year's one, just a black banana.
This is the banana that you make banana.
Peel here for instant
Yeah.
smoothie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
just do some baking with
Yeah,
it
I
or
think
something.
they had problems on the first day, didn't they? Because I think by lunchtime, Ricardo had only done something like 18 laps.
And Ricardo, he did do a spin at one point, didn't he? But he said it was all on him.
Yeah. He had a couple, didn't he? I think he had a couple of
I have
goes.
no idea, possibly. Also, Verstappen span, Bottas did. Leclerc, I want to say, spun.
Yeah,
spun
yeah.
at the
I
same
remember
turn.
Ferrari
I mean,
having a
well, they're all
issue.
driving cars they've never driven before. You know.
It was all around sector 3, which everyone was having problems, seems to be having problems with.
Yeah.
But that's one of the hardest parts of the track, because as you say, it's the twisty turny bit that caused Williams all the problems. Caused some problems for Williams last year. I won't say all the problems because there were more.
Yeah.
But should we wrap up the whole sort of testing thing and looking forward to the season by saying that the second part of testing, second week of testing, second 3 days is going to be where they start looking for the performance.
Yeah,
Yes.
this time next week we're going to have a real idea of where we
Yes.
are.
A better idea.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have a real idea until qualifying in Australia.
I don't know. I think there's something feels different about testing this year.
I like that it's shorter. I've got to be honest.
Yeah,
I like that it's shorter, and I like that we're getting the TV coverage.
that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, maybe that's why it feels like you know more because you're seeing more.
You're seeing
Possibly.
what's happening because even on years when they've shown bits of it before, because last year they had the experiment of doing the first week, and then a few years back they tried the 3D thing, which really didn't work because you can't watch 3D in daylight.
Well, it was really funny. Formula One started messing around with 3D, and then Sony stopped making 3D movies, so it was fucked. Like, Sony make all of the movies very near.
But yeah, we get to see a lot more because in previous years we've only seen little snippets that have been released. A lot more was being filmed that we didn't get to see, but that was being done by the teams. That was
Yeah.
being done by FOM. Now it's everything what's and all coverage. Talking of which, Friday, Drive to Survive season 2.
Can't wait. That'll be smashed by Monday.
What a day for F1! There's a full day of testing
Mhm.
and the new series of Drive to Survive.
Yeah,
I've actually got Friday books off work.
that
Nice.
That has
Same.
been planned well.
I have organised this. Do you know what? I'm going to live blog testing on Friday.
Very good.
Crazy.
That doesn't get you hard. What does?
Watching Drive to Survive after it's finished. I'm not going to live blog Drive to Survive. But we'll be talking about it next week.
Sure we will.
But yeah, I think I'll live blog Friday's testing session.
Just quickly, Drive to Survive. Terrible name.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
I
Terrible
agree.
name.
Yes.
Why do they have to do this? I thought this was the TT film as well.
Closer to the edge. No, that was all. What the fuck's his name? Jared Leto's fault.
But still a terrible name.
Yes, but basically he had a song called "Closer to the Edge." They got him to narrate it. They needed a little carrot, so they let him name it after his song
Why couldn't they just call it The Singer's a Twat?
because they were trying to entice him.
So the TT film was called Closer to the Edge. The
Yes.
game was called Ride on the Edge or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had to go with that the other day. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's different.
It's unbelievably realistic. Like the circuit is unbelievably realistic.
Yeah,
I was-
the physics aren't quite there. which
no,
is
it's
what-
too floaty for
Which
me.
is what they said for the second game. They fixed it. But
Yeah.
that's something we should talk about elsewhere.
Yeah. I always think that bike games are a bit floaty anyway.
On that note,
On
Are
that,
we shunting?
on that bombshell,
Yeah.
shunty time.
Shunt time.
Right, whose is this week's
This is
from?
from Dan Thompson, and I don't think I've done it before.
good stuff.
I found one earlier. I messaged the person that sent it in. I said, "Have I done this?" He said, "A long, long time ago."
In a galaxy far, far
Thank
away.
you.
I've got the T-shirt for that tonight.
I also have.
Oh yeah,
Paul's
no,
top.
I didn't notice your
Yeah.
porg.
I'm not looking for the appreciation. That's not why I'm asking this for this. But can we if you look at the steps you go through to get a total shunt on the show, can we make a third and final step? So the first step is you submit it. Second step is I do it.
Yeah.
The third step is you say thank you. Not because I want to thank you, just so I know I've done it.
You don't technically, then they don't need to say thank you. They just need to say done or something like that. If They
Okay.
don't, if they don't want to be polite about
Tell
it.
me how handsome I am then.
You're screwed. Don't forget we're on video now. Well, I think we are.
I was born.
You have done
Correct.
it before.
I was born. He doesn't give a year.
Just born.
That's not very fair.
I am a blues song.
Oh no, sorry. Well, what? Hang on. I was ABC.
Is it Jumping Jack Flash?
Oh no. This. See, you're fucking skating with the rules, Dan. This is not.
Well, this bodes well. I don't think we're gonna
Right.
get it.
I was born. Thank you.
I was. No, question one has a 1 and then an ABC with
Oh
it.
fucking hell!
Yeah,
Jesus
so-
Christ.
I was born before John O'Truly. B, after Pedro de la Rosa.
Oh god.
C, the same year as Rubens Barrichello.
So
Alright,
this is
okay.
72.
I share a birthday with
72.
Jarno Trulli.
So the what? Just
You also share a birthday with James Key, I noticed.
Oh,
when
yeah.
I'm googling him a minute ago.
so what year do you
Not
think
s-
it
I don't
was?
think it's 72. I think it's slightly more recent.
Let's
than
just say, just for sake of clearing this up, let's say it is 72. The
Right.
question should have been I was born in 1970 fucking two, yeah?
Look at my knowledge of dates of birth.
Number 2,
Mm,
I am German.
right.
Number 3, I came from a racing family.
Is it the Ralph of
It could-
Schumacher?
it
Don't
could
stop.
be the Ralph.
don't all give me answers at once, please.
It sounds
I am
It's
but
the
one
right
man.
age for the Ralph.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah.
How old was Ralph when he came to Formula One? He was young, wasn't he? Because his name was Ralph Schumacher. They had to get him in quickly. I think he was about
Mhm.
19 when he came in, so he would have actually have been older than that when
Oh,
he
it
started
would-
in Formula
I was
One.
going to say when he started in Formula One, it definitely wasn't 1991. I think it was about
97, I
90.
think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Michael was born in '69, so
Yeah.
that would be the right sort of age gap for a younger brother, I think.
Fun Ralph Schumacher fact: when he
Yes.
came into Formula One, he devastated my fantasy championship that year. Devastated it.
Yeah. Shall we go with the Ralph?
I think the Ralph is the best
Yeah,
option
Ralph
at the moment.
Schumacher.
I only raced in 1972. I entered 8 races.
Not
Hang on.
Ralph Schumacher.
That's
So hang on. So this is something. So this is a thing. This isn't a person.
Mm.
If we're thinking it was born in 1972 and was racing in 1972,
And only did 8 races.
this is this is an entity.
like a spirit.
Right.
I am EBE 6501. My best finish was 10th twice. I retired twice.
Right.
Right.
So it's going to be a crappy German car or a crappy
Mm.
German team.
Yes.
I just he's obviously listening. I got a thumbs up. I
That counts as a thank
That's
you.
a
yeah,
thank
it
you.
does.
That's a thank you, you
Your
don't know.
duty
Yeah.
is done.
I know I'm doing it, mate. I'm actually doing it at the minute, but thanks. You could have told me how handsome I am.
He's just sent him a picture of a moose.
I'm named after a mountain range in Germany.
How are we on the German mountains then?
Crap.
I don't know. Yeah.
There's some Alps, I think.
Yeah. I don't know that I know German mountains.
Alpine were French,
Mhm.
not German,
No.
and also a subdivision of Renault.
Sounds like a maths equation.
Yeah.
I'd like a guess.
Oh,
Again, don't all come at me at once.
Don't worry, we won't.
Yeah. I think
What
my-
about
my couple
the
minutes.
bicycle manufacturer who went into car racing for a while? Steyr Puch. Where are they from?
Oh. How are we spelling that?
STEYR-PUCH.
Doesn't sound German.
A friend of mine had a Puch bike when
They
when I
were
was a
bicycle
kid.
manufacturers, yeah.
Steyr Puch sounds like a female solo artist from the 90s that
I
sounds like
think they were
Sigur Rós.
German. I think they were German
Oh.
because they had black, red, and yellow stripes on them.
Or Belgian.
Or Belgian.
Belgian likes a bike.
That's a good point, yeah.
We'll go with that
it,
anyway
yeah,
because
we'll
we've
go
got
with it.
nothing else.
It sounds plausible.
The
What are you going with?
Steyr Mountains.
Mm.
Yeah.
Steyr
Steyr
Puch.
Puch, yeah, why not?
My first F1 race was at the South African Grand Prix.
As were most
yeah,
teams and
Yeah.
people who made their debut there because that was
That's
what
where
used
it
to open the
started.
season.
I came from a long line of caravan manufacturers.
Amazing.
My
Do you know what? That might be one of my favourite clues of all time.
Winnebago F1.
Does anyone else feel like they're getting further away from the answer?
Yes.
9.
Yes.
Heimer were a German manufacturer of.
Well,
they-
Heimer is a thing, yes.
yeah, and they're owned by Mercedes now, but they may not have been back then.
That's interesting.
Hmm.
Teammates included Rolf
Stommelen.
Stommelen. and-
I'm amazed I knew it without even looking at it because I knew what word he was going to be struggling
Yeah,
with.
and well, Rolf's a strange name, isn't it? There's not a lot of Rolfs.
Harris.
Yeah, but he's not a Formula One driver.
No.
But I suppose,
Also, Australia.
Yes.
but he's got some interesting stories about caravans. John Watson.
Stunned silence.
Yeah.
I take it you're sour into sandbagging.
Yeah, we're well up on the German caravan racing teams.
Yeah.
My team owner's twin lost his arm in the Second World War and continued to race.
Robert Kubica.
Apparently, there's a strong line of one-armed racing drivers. Wonder how well he did.
You've been wrong for many
I
times.
know,
Lee.
yeah.
Nothing to do with modern Formula One cars being too easy to drive. People with one arm can just drive.
I'm nowhere.
Imagine you can't do the DAS one-handed.
Well, you might be able to.
Presumably, you still need to be focusing on. Sort
You
of
look like you're playing
holding
the
stick,
Phantom
yeah.
Fruit Machine.
I've got a spaffer where you can have before you do the
That's
quiz.
a
Oh, we
euphemism
will
if I've
almost
ever heard
certainly
one.
need
Yeah.
it.
He's playing the Phantom Fruit Machine. A hell of a euphemism, that. Is he alright? He's fine. He's just playing the Phantom Fruit Machine.
Why do I feel that might be what the other person on the side of a glory hole does?
Oh, dear.
Oh, looking forward to seeing the comments on this one.
It's gone.
Oh,
It's gone
oh,
horribly
no.
wrong. You sure you wanted to live stream this one after the technological problems we had earlier?
It
I
was-
started my life
oh,
as a March 721. No idea what that is.
It's a car.
It's a car.
But I was significantly redesigned by Luigi, unpronounceable surname.
Bortolano.
Colani.
No, not Bortolano.
Kalani.
Kalani.
Unpronounceable by me.
As in the F1 team, Kalani.
Oh, is that a thing?
Yeah,
Oh,
but they were Italian, so it's not
no,
these.
Not that then.
Or am I thinking of Coloni?
Don't know.
Oh, Jesus. There was a crappy German team called ATS. Nothing to do with the tyre repair company.
Bavarian Mountains.
I think they have mountains in the Bavarian regions.
I can give you one last
Are they-
clue.
are they the
Yeah.
Alps?
If this answer is pronounced as I believe it's pronounced,
Uh-huh.
Go on.
I sound similar to Santa's little friends,
So
or where they would come from.
right. So what? The North Pole team. The
No,
Lapland team.
His little
Hang on. There's the
friends.
Rhina Mountains. Is that not a mountain range?
Yeah, but
His little friends.
like elves.
I
Yeah.
assumed we were going for elves rather than reindeer, but
I don't know where the Rhina Mountains even are. I've
Where do,
heard of them
where do
before.
elves come from?
I don't know.
Elfland?
Fiction.
Mm.
That's probably the best Dark Crystal impression I've heard. I think he's just had his Phantom Fruit Machine played with.
Wait, or you could stop mocking me
No,
and take the help.
I don't know what help you're trying to give.
I'm
you
off to
sound
play the
windy.
Well,
Phantom
when
Fruit
did I make
Machine.
the noise? I made the noise when somebody said something, didn't I?
Elfland. Not that one then.
Elf is German for 11.
I think we're gonna have to give up. We're gonna have to give up on this one, aren't we?
Elfin.
We do not know.
Right. I am the Elfland F1 team.
Oh, right.
Oh,
okay.
right, okay.
I-
That was one.
I think it's
Bloody hell.
Elfland. It's EIFELLLIN.
Have a look.
That,
Yeah.
this does not sound.
Iceland.
Yes, close enough. It's closer than you were.
Is that where your mum goes to your shopping?
The Iceland prawn ring.
That was a hard one.
That was a
That
bloody.
was
That was a bloody
pain
tough
in
one.
the-
Nice
Yeah,
one, Dan.
That was bloody great, Dan. How do you send in a shunt?
You can tweet me at TalkShunt in a private message, or you can send me a private message on Instagram at the same name.
And if you want to get a hold of the rest of us, you can get the show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at 3 Legs 4 Wheels. And individually, we are
At Flood21.
At Sean Cowper.
and at Pablo100. If you're old school, you can email 3legs4wheels at gmail.com and send a couple of shunts into that address as well for the backup supply when Lee's not about.
While you send your email, you might as well look for our PO box number.
I could sort one out easily enough, you know. Where people can send biscuits to.
Okay, boomer.
On that note, quick update on Formula Lee. It's Silverstone short track in the dry in the 2010 Red Bull. You've still got another week to get that one in. And I think that about does it for this week, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks to everyone, by the way, who listened to me on Spotify this week. It was noted.
And thank you for everyone who actually made it to the YouTube stream after all our problems tonight. Just another apology to all the Patreons who were waiting to watch the live feed, which didn't happen. But we think we've conquered the technical gremlins now.
Think so.
We think so. We'll be back next week, and we'll be talking about the second week of testing and quick spoiler-free review of Drive to Survive. And I'll be doing the live blog on Friday of pre-season testing on 3legs4wheels.com. That's about it.
I think so.
Right.
Yep.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank God for me.
Whoa! I
Quick
think we actually
Q&A
made it
on
through
you
there
might
in
need
one
that on
piece.
you for
Let's-
the YouTube.
Yeah,
please.
leave it on for the YouTubers. There's still 33 of them there.
I'm glad we got people there. You know, considering all that fucking around.
Silence and stillness is not good for a pod, even when live stream. That's Jonathan Mills saying that. I think he might be talking about you, Chris.
Yeah, I think so.
So why did we reverse the camera? This is because of the new table, presumably.
Yes.
It's my ever going experiment to turn this podcast room into Poundland Joe Rogan territory.
So deals Joe Rogan territory over here. Surely it's 20% more.
That's true. Yes, it's a nice table. It's
Yeah.
a nice table. I need
Solid
to
wood.
polish up. It weighs about 20 stone.
Ah.
But the best thing is, it's got like it's got like an extra 4 foot you can put in the middle.
Oh, it's one of these you can pull it
Yeah,
out and
yeah.
whack a bit more in if
But
you're having a
it's-
banquet.
But it slides underneath, and it's like a little tray underneath, so it's great for cable management. So that's why all the cables are really neat. Looking behind the curtain.
Albert Knoll
Yes.
says I like this setup, and Glenn Merkel says new table. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, new table. Absolutely new
Noticed
table.
the camera, but didn't notice the table.
I think. Does anyone think the video quality is better this week as well? That's watching on the YouTube, because the light's a slightly different
I think
setup
the
too.
lighting is better. Actually,
Yeah.
looking at it, I've not really looked at
It looks
but
clearer.
yeah.
There's less noise.
Yeah, I can. You can actually see all four of us.
Mhm.
Although I think I've had a microphone stand in front of my face for most of the night. I've now moved it down after we finished streaming.
That's why people stuck around. What?
At least I shaved this week.
Sometimes more face isn't better. I know.
So it was very controversial when you shaved.
Oh yeah, people didn't like that. I didn't like that. To be fair. See, said it again. To be
To be
fair.
fair.
Have we got any questions,
Yeah,
people?
they won't know that joke yet because they haven't heard the Patreon.
Well,
We need to go and listen to it then.
Yeah,
'cause
you'll need to listen
fortunately
to the
we couldn't
Patreon
stream
when that comes out. It's going to be round about this time tomorrow night when everything gets released. Because
Okay.
I'm not mixing it tonight, and I'll do it as soon as I get back from band practice tomorrow.
Abby, it's not me. I asked Paul to do it, and he hasn't done it yet.
What's that?
Abby wants the Lando and George interviews.
I sent you the links.
Did you?
Yes.
On what?
I think I sent them on a Facebook message. Abby, I will. I'll tweet you them when I get home.
Yeah.
They are actually there on the site, but I'll find them and I'll send you a DM on Twitter with them.
Lando Norris was September 2017?
No, they were both
January
January.
2018,
January 2018 for both of them.
was it?
Yeah, in fact, it was 2 years ago this week we did the George Russell interview. And it's been coming up in Facebook memories this week. You were in Northampton 2 years ago. Like, a bit more than Northampton.
Yeah. We must have gone through Northampton.
I think we managed to avoid it. We went to Milton Keynes, and that is hell on earth.
Yes, it is. You know the where they're keeping the quarantined people. That was the hotel I stayed in when I went to Bletchley Park. Yeah.
Well, that's an advert.
It's an old BT conference centre. It's not a hotel. Don't advertise it as a hotel. It's a lie.
Do you think it's worth anyone else developing a DAS system?
It depends
Difficult, isn't it?
depends how quick they can get it done, because there's not going to be any testing.
It's
I think
total
the-
front suspension redesign. I don't
Yeah.
think it's possible.
I mean, they can have a prototype ready. If they can have a prototype ready for Bahrain, there's a test after the Bahrain Grand Prix. but that only gives 4 weeks
Mm.
because first 2 races are back to back this year.
Yeah.
It was Christian Horner who said it was 6 months.
Yeah,
To try and build a system and get it tested and ready on the
It's
the
all
track.
I
ready
mean,
for racing.
realistically, I don't think it is worth it if you can't keep it for next year. The money that it would take to build like that to stick on the car, to get it then working once, because you're not going to bolt it on and then it works straight away properly. I don't see
I think
it
it
being
depends
worth
how
it,
effective it is.
or how close you are in a championship battle, maybe.
Yeah, if it's not that effective, I don't think anyone else will do it. If it's super effective, expect everyone to panic build and have them on by Spain.
And then lap 1, turn 1, half the field take the first corner with the steering wheel on their lap.
Yeah, that system definitely sounds like a Kraftwerk song.
Does yeah.
Not only a Kraftwerk song, but the only words within that Kraftwerk song.
Never understood people who go and watch Kraftwerk live.
No.
I see people checking their email every day at work.
Yeah,
I
4
know that-
guys stood around laptops.
They did a song once called "We Are Showroom Dummies" and nobody batted an eyelid.
I do quite like some of the Kraftwerk stuff, but
In a live experience, if you want to go and watch projections, you go to the pictures.
yeah,
Jonathan Mills said, couldn't a team use the China Gap as well to use an old car to develop it? Maybe.
There's chance. I mean, they'd have to use a 2016 car now.
Yeah, like I said, I'm kind of convinced that if something that radical for them to have to completely rework the back end of the car and the back suspension, that feels like 2 things that must
Yeah.
connect somewhere.
yeah.
You'd hope.
You think so, yeah.
But the fact that the front suspension is so. It's part of it, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's you can't just stick your DAS system on,
Yeah.
on an existing front suspension. You have to rebuild your front suspension to include that.
And
DAS system.
even all the things like not just the system, but how like how much pressure you have to put on it to use it, how far it comes out to turn the wheels in, and how much like geometry wise, it's a fucking head fuck.
Yes and no. Yeah, there'll be they're very clever people who work in Formula One. They'll be able to work that out.
I mean, Ted Kravitz
Facts.
explained it by sitting on a chair.
Yeah, but Ted Kravitz can explain everything with opal fruits. So the fact he had tyres, it was obviously going to be easy.
I was really disappointed that he was using actual Formula One bits to explain
Yeah,
a Formula One
that's-
concept.
It's not within the spirit of the Ted Kravitz explainer.
He didn't break a rule, but it's just not within
It's
the
not
boundary.
within the spirit. No.
Not
Broke
within
the
the spirit of the
sporting
Ted Kravitz
regulations.
rules.
Yeah.
Have got any more cues that need A-ing?
One that says Connect 4 question mark.
Connect 4.
Connect 4 question mark winky face.
What?
Anyone want to play Connect 4?
Is that it?
Is it visible?
Is it visible? Is there a Connect 4 around the room?
There's no Connect 4 in here. Are you
Right.
There's 4 of us. Is he wanting us to do horrible things?
Connect 4?
Back to the Naked podcast.
Back to yeah. I think
not
you.
sure.
Just,
I think
just,
we-
just point out that it's Glenn Merkel saying this, and he lives in Seattle, and what's legal in Seattle?
Ah.
The Human Centipede.
Terrible film, sucks ass.
That's very good.
I'm keeping that.
Oh dear. On that note,
Apparently, the Connect 4 was in response to some of our comments.
moving,
I don't-
moving swiftly on.
I don't know which one.
I like the I like the meme on Twitter where the Merc just took off into the
Twatter-
air by pulling the
Twatter is an
steering.
amazing parody website I would like to exist. If someone could please make that exist.
This raises 2 questions. One of which being Albert Noel's autocorrect, and why was it in there in the first place?
Ooh, hello.
Pull the wheel and the car takes off.
Yeah, I like that.
If you can merge it with the Lando being punted into space one from last year.
I think it's got that music on it.
Bow,
Yeah,
bow,
yeah.
bow, bow.
I still think my favorite Formula One meme for quite some time was that one with the most talented people on the grid: Hamilton, Verstappen, Adrian Newey, and Roman Grosjean's manager.
Yeah.
We'll have to get meme creating this year if one of us comes up with something funny.
Yeah,
Well,
more,
we're screwed there then.
I'm more of a word man than a picture man. I can use a GIF to devastating effect.
Yeah, I like a good gift.
Is there any more questions before we fuck off and go to sleep?
Yeah, they've just brought that Microsoft Teams thing in at work, and you can send GIFs on that, and I think that's possibly my employer's greatest mistake ever. Because you can upload your own.
Oh dear.
Yes.
Mm.
I'm gonna go then. Go home. Go to bed.
Stay here.
No.
Play Connect 4 or Connect 2.
Nico Rosberg for sure. Paul moving swiftly on. Jonathan, you'd say it a lot if you had to contend with this.
For sure. Isn't it
No.
Valtteri Bottas who says for sure like every?
He's the latest
Third
for
one.
I
sure.
think
right?
it's just a general sort of.
It's
European
Euro
acceptance.
phrase, which causes real problems watching F2 when you've got Richard Verschoor
Richard Verschoor,
driving.
yeah.
Dick for sure.
It's still not quite up there with Fisichella being very happy all the time. He was always very happy.
He was.
Right, no one's saying anything. I think they want to go to
Yeah,
bed
let's go
as
then,
much
let's
as
go then.
we
Yeah,
do.
nice. Done.
Yeah, it's 11:15.
Fucking
It's
hell, he's
time-
off.
Time to
Bye.
call it a night. Bloody hell, Chris.
Yeah.
So,
Right,
Later, you've got
keep well, people. Bye bye.
you're waving at the wrong thing.
He's
You've got my
waving.
iPad, which is filming this.